New ID, new me. Hey, I am Chuck the bureaucrat, and you guys know that I'm going through a really weird point in my transition, right? I finally am entering the retired roles, I'm taking a position as a contractor, and that means that I'm spending a lot of time in the ID office. So I'm learning by failing, and I thought I'd share some of the things I learned in this process. All right, very first thing, you know how military on active duty in uniform get sort of expedited priority when they go to the ID office? Well, guess what? Retirees and contractors, they don't. I know. I've gotten completely accustomed to a privilege that is no longer mine. So here's lesson number one. Make an appointment. Don't just walk in unless you've got a lot of time on your hands. And when you make that appointment, use this URL and make your appointment well in advance so that you can get the ID office from the location where you're retiring from. The second lesson is take more documentation than you think you're going to need. I showed up with my DD 214, but they're like, oh, that's member 1. We don't need member 1. We need member 4. The guy in front of me tried to use his old CAC card as one of his forms of ID, and that led to a whole bunch of bickering. And then I had my passport, my driver's license, social security card, birth certificate. Just take more than you need. And then there was another problem, because when I finally did get an appointment, the folks at that ID office told me that when they're issuing your very first retiree card, it has to be done by an ID office operated by your service, in my case, the Army, and I was at a Marine office. That's why it's so important that you schedule this a long time in advance at the right location. But I did learn something interesting about our DOD ID numbers. You know, those numbers on the back of our CAC cards that replaced our social security numbers? Your DOD ID number does not change when you change statuses. When I got my government CAC card, it had the same DOD ID number as my old active duty card. In fact, the DOD ID number, it existed long before it was ever put to use for this purpose. It was a personnel identification number that was inside DEERS, and it was assigned to everybody who had a relationship with the Department of Defense, and it was assigned at the time that they initiated their relationship, and it stayed with them no matter how they changed. So somebody might start out as a dependent and then move on to be a service member themselves and then become a retiree, and they have the same DOD ID number the whole time. Now, why might you care about this seemingly arcane piece of trivia? Well, if you're transferring from one status to another, say you're becoming a contractor, you might hear somebody say something that sounds like this. Well, we need you to get your CAC so we can know your DOD ID number so we can do whatever the next onboarding step is. But if you have a CAC, your DOD ID number is not going to change. So you can avoid letting delays at the ID office delay your onboarding process. Hey, I really like being a bureaucrat. And you want to see one of the ways that data structures help us communicate within the federal government? Check out this video.